Welcome to today's episode, and today I'm talking with Josh Green. He is a conservation biologist and naturalist on board Maple Leaf Expeditions Cascadia ship. And today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the types of things that people can see or experience in the natural environment when they're traveling either in Haida, Gwaii or other parts of the Pacific coast, and kind of learn a little bit about what there is in this part of the world. So thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you, if you've ever dreamed of experiencing one of the incredible destinations that we talk about on the show, be sure to visit farandawayadventures.com. For over 30 years, I've helped travelers discover some of the most extraordinary destinations on Earth. If this is of interest, check out the link in the description to farandawayadventures.com, and we'd be happy to make your next trip unforgettable.
Now, Josh, can you just tell me a little bit about your experience as a naturalist and conservation biologist?
Yeah, so I've worked sort of throughout the BC coast, mostly doing research rather than working in this role, sort of in the more guiding and tourism side of things. And yeah, my hope is in these trips that I can sort of fill the role of helping people to understand a little bit more about the places we move through, and they can sort of deepen their connection to these areas and go home and be able to tell people a little bit about some of the things they've seen. And I think that just helps, round out people's experiences in these places. So
yeah, well, and you've told me you really love birds and really know birds well. What types of bird life are people typically seeing in this part of the BC coast? Yeah,
I mean, we get a really wide range of things on the ship. We're really lucky and we get to travel through these places, especially coming up and down the archipelago here where there's lots of seabirds in the water. So we're, this morning moving our way south, we're seeing rhinoceros auklets and puffins and pigeon guillemots, all sort of like on the water. We get to see them fishing and then, flying around some of the areas they nest in. And on land, there's tons of bird life. It's really amazing getting to walk through some of these forests, and you can just listen to chickadees and thrushes and all sorts of like little flycatchers and other things. The forests here are really alive. So yeah.
Is there any kind of bird activity that's you've seen that has really surprised you or been a little bit different than what you had expected?
I mean, I guess it's always amazing watching, the seabirds like puffins and other things that are, they can fly and they don't fly super well, but then they get in the water and they swim, better than they fly essentially. And so watching birds that are able to, get places in the air, but really come into their own in the water, I think is amazing. And then you add on to the fact that they mostly nest in burrows. So it's a weird trifecta of places that they survive, and they carve out these little niches to raise their chicks, and then they really thrive in the water. So
are there better times of the year for sightings of the bird life on the coast?
They're going through their breeding cycle all summer. So in this area they're going to be basically fishing near to these islands and coming back every night to feed chicks. So yeah, your summer months, there's really, things will taper off at the beginning when birds are arriving, migrating north, and then they start to, once their chicks fledge, they'll head out to sea to feed more, and so they're going to be not as close to shore, but all summer you're seeing lots of birds on the coast here. So
apart from the bird life that you see here, what are other types of things that people can experience when they come on an expedition trip?
Yeah, I mean, if we get lucky, we've always got our eyes on the horizon and on the water, and as we, transit from area to area, you'd sort of hope to see whales. There's obviously orca in this part of the world that are always moving, and we're on the move. So if we're lucky, we get to spot them as they're moving somewhere, and we're maybe moving with them for a little bit. You get humpbacks, and gray whales and minkies that all feed up here in the summer. And so again, it's really just trying to keep your eyes on the water and seeing what we see, but plenty of whales, a few species of porpoises, and then if you're really lucky, you get to see sea otters that are coming back to this part of the world as well.
Yeah, I know today we had an opportunity to see a little bit of all of that, I think. Some orcas and was it gray whales that we saw?
Humpbacks,
or humpback whales.
Yeah.
And some sea otters, but it's really breathtaking. I mean, they're just, there's a lot of food for them in these areas. And so they come right to the surface and they're feeding, and there's an opportunity, again, if depending on the circumstances, but to view them in their natural habitat, just eating and living their life.
They're not really fazed by us. I mean, there's a lot of regulations in place to make sure that we're really trying not to bother them, but like we saw today with humpbacks feeding, if there's a lot of bait in the water, we can turn our engines off, and they're really happy to do their thing, and really not too worried by our presence at all, and that's a real treat. So.
Yeah, and I mean, it was very memorable for me, but do you have any other kind of experiences that you've had, any specific experiences with wildlife that have been particularly memorable for you?
I mean, in this part of the world, I think it's always just amazing. Similar to what we saw today, like anytime you get to be in the water, close to these really big animals, you get really reminded about just the size and the scale of these humpbacks feeding, and their things like that. I think I'm always still surprised by. Like, it's hard to you just forget, I guess, or you don't really realize it. Especially you see them off in the distance, and it's cool to see them diving, but when you really get a little bit closer, you realize how big they are and how small we are. So any time you get close to wildlife, in doing other work and doing research, I also feel really strongly that you really appreciate things more when you get up close with them. If you're working on seabird species, that often involves handling them, and you get to see birds up close. If you're on the water around whales and other cetaceans, being able to watch really closely, I think is sort of always a treat. So that would be
Well, I mean, also part of it is respecting the wildlife, and what are some ways that people can respectfully admire this wildlife without being in their space?
I mean, it's up to mostly the operators that are running these trips to make sure that they're maintaining safe viewing distances from whales, and in other places we see the stellar sea lions in their rookeries where they have pups, and so we're really trying to be careful to make sure that they're not not worrying about us, and you don't want to cause them to stampede or basically alter their behavior while we're watching them. But that's really on the operators to make sure that they're following those guidelines. And then when we're on land, I think it's just really, really important to understand that we're able to damage these areas if we wander freely. So making sure that you're staying on paths and marked trails, and you're not you're just not causing too much impact in the places we get to visit. So.
Now, I mean, you see a lot of the same things over and over again. Does it ever get old?
No.
It's I can imagine. I mean, you're out there, and obviously you might see the same whales or the same groups of whales, but it's pretty awe-inspiring to see these animals and these birds over and over again. Yeah,
I think even though you see the same species or the same groups, you're always in different places, in different settings, and that's sort of it definitely doesn't get old.
Yeah. Now, do you ever use any apps or other tools to? I mean, I don't know, for your research, or are there good tools out there for people who really want to learn more about the different types of birds and other animal life in the
Yeah, I
this
think
area?
for birds especially, one that I always tell guests to download is Merlin. It has a pretty good interface for IDing birds by their calls. So you can just do sound recordings and it'll identify the species in the area, and you can play back the recording to play back just the little call that it managed to identify a species on. And that's something that you can really do anywhere. It's not just for here. And yeah, just sort of like things like that are easy to use, and they help you just understand a little bit more about what's around. That's something that I use all the time. I'm really not super strong with identifying all the birds, especially just by calls alone. So Merlin, and then iNaturalist has an app called Seek, which uses your phone's camera to identify. Usually it's best with plant species because they don't move very much. And then so if you see a plant that you really want to know what it is and you don't, you're not able to identify it, it can usually get you pretty close, or you're able to take a photo, and when you can connect to internet, usually get an identification from that. So those two apps that are sort of interactive, I think I use the most in this area, and then just having a good guidebook is usually also really helpful. So.
I can imagine a guidebook would be helpful in some of these areas where there's not much Wi-Fi or connectivity easily accessible.
Yeah.
But all right, and I mean, having traveled around quite a bit yourself and been to a lot of different areas geographically. Right now we're in Haida, Gwaii. Is there anything particular about this area as far as the bird life or the animal life that you've kind of noticed that maybe is a bit unique?
I mean, this place is like definitely ecologically very unique, because in the previous ice ages, this wasn't covered by glaciers, so it's a glacial refugia for a lot of different species. And the fact that it's an island, you get the largest black bears in North America and some of the smallest deer, just because of the fact that the populations are isolated. But really, Haida Gwaii is special because of the age of the forests and the size of the trees, and just the climate that creates these really like prehistoric feeling forests, and forests that feel like, other than the Haida moving through this place, really humans haven't had a huge impact on. So I think that's sort of the special thing about being here, is being able to walk on land and just see how a landscape that's like stewarded well is really able to survive over time.
Well, it definitely is a very unique destination, and just in the short time that we've been traveling around here, it's been incredible to see the diversity of the animal life, both in the water and in the air and on land. So it's been a wonderful thing to experience and see. But thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on our podcast today.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Thanks for tuning in. Discover your next unforgettable journey at farandawasadventures.com. Experience the world differently.